Creating work-life balance is an integral part to living a happy and healthy life. I'm no stranger to falling astray to both sides of the spectrum, whether that be working so much to feel a sense of accomplishment for myself, or then burning out as a byproduct and becoming a couch potato for the following days. Striking a balance is a very sensitive process, but what I found out over many failures is it doesn't require the latest productivity hacks or access to endless resources. In fact, it's a lot simpler than that. So in today's video, I want to go over how you can create a better work-life balance simply. Real quick, before we get into the material, if you're new around here, my name is Mark, and this is a channel that is dedicated to both health and lifestyle optimization. If that's something you're interested in, then consider subscribing to the channel for all future content. Alright, let's get into it. So whether you're a student, a 9-to-5er, or an entrepreneur like myself, striking a balance is a necessary thing to have in your life. It's going to be the difference between you having a baseline of fulfillment in your life or constantly chasing after the next thing and just trying to maintain your sanity through it all. The first thing I'm going to suggest for you to do is engage in deep work. And what this means is when you are working, you're fully engaged into the work that you're doing with a high level of intensity and focus. This requires you to totally shut off from the outside world and enter what a lot of people would call a flow state. If you're an athlete, an instrumentalist, you might be familiar with the state when you get yourself into that certain groove, whether that be through movement or finding that certain melody in a song. The idea is we try to replicate that state when we go into any type of work process. And we do this by creating structure. We structure blocks throughout our day, throughout our week, or even throughout the month where we engage in deep work. It's far too easy to be engaged in work and find yourself constantly distracted from what it is that you're actually trying to accomplish. So get rid of the phone, put it in a different room, and totally separate yourself from what it is that you're trying to accomplish. This is something that you have to put 100% intensive focus into. Our body works off of habitual pattern programming. So the more that you can set aside the right structure and environment for your work practice, the higher likelihood you're going to have of actually creating higher output of results when you go into a work session. Now these work sessions don't have to be long. They can be 20 minutes in duration, they can be 45, they can be an hour, but the idea is you're putting in undistracted work for a certain block of time. If you want more information on what deep work is all about, then I would check out a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. He goes far more into the actual process around this, but this is kind of the baseline of what I took away from the book and what I tried to apply into my life. Now that we understand we need to engage in deep work, which is unfocused, 100% intensive work, we also need to recognize that this work needs to be met with adequate time to both rest and recharge. We often overestimate what we can do in a day and underestimate what we can accomplish in a week or a month. So by setting ourselves up for success by utilizing deep work and then taking the necessary time to recharge, we can actually start to look at our life from a little bit of a higher level. We're not taking life just day by day, going with what kind of comes to us. There's a time and a place to roll with the punches in life, but when it comes to striking a balance and creating a harmony between both your work and your personal life, you need to take that seriously. And the more seriously that you can take this, the higher output you're going to have both through your work, but also through your friendships, as well as through just your personal life in general. Something that I greatly undermined was when I participate in doing nothing or lack of doing work, the more energy and creativity I can actually bring back into my work. This initially wasn't something easy for me to wrap my head around, as I thought, I'm not doing anything, so how does this actually lead to anything productive? But that mindset lacks foresight. What you have to look at is if you're constantly driving yourself into the ground with just work, you never actually get time to step away from that and look at what it is that you're trying to accomplish from an outside perspective. This outside perspective allows you to just take a step back, take a breather, and approach the situation with a new set of eyes. I'm sure you can think of many times in your life where you were working away on a puzzle, a writing piece, or something of that nature, and you just kept working away on it, and then you came back to it a day later and you realized that the problem actually wasn't that difficult to solve. It just needed that slight perspective shift. And this is what I mean by taking an adequate amount of time to recharge. It doesn't have to be just work, and it shouldn't be just you sitting on the couch being lazy either. Again, there has to be an interplay between the two. And ultimately, that's for you to decide what that ratio is going to look like. The amount of output that you can create currently is probably due to how much you have worked prior. But just because you have worked a lot prior doesn't necessarily mean what it is that you're doing is even good or valuable work. So just something to keep in mind in regards to that. The third technique that I'm going to recommend for you is to set realistic expectations for yourself. Like I said earlier in this video, we greatly undermine what we can accomplish in a week, a year, 5 years, but we greatly overestimate what we can even accomplish in a day. People tend to fully stack their days from one thing to the next, just constantly going through. And I am 100% guilty of this as well. It's almost an addictive type behavior because you can see this as a challenge of something that you want to get done. You can be like, okay, I'm going to try to get 12 consistent hours of work done. And you challenge yourself to that. Now that is definitely not a healthy thing to do and something that I'm guilty of, trying to squeeze in every single ounce of work into every single minute of the day. And that is no way to get good, productive work in. The expectation you set for yourself is directly dictated by the foresight that you have. This is what I'm talking about when you look at your week, your month, or your year from a higher level. The intent is to zoom out and try to be tactful in what it is that we try to accomplish each day, making sure that we're being realistic with what we expect from ourselves, but also not undermining how much it is that we can do in a day. Make sure that it's something that's achievable, but is also a challenge. Something that I've recently incorporated is I'll do 2 to 3 hours of deep work, and then I'm going to take 1 to 2 hours off, or I'll participate in what Cal Newport would say is shallow work. These are things that aren't too cognitively demanding and can leave a little bit of fuel in the tank, so if there's anything else that I want to get in for that day, I have a little bit of juice left to put into it. As the day progresses, things become more and more challenging to do. There's another principle around this called decision fatigue, meaning the more decisions that I have to make earlier on in the day, the less likely I am to commit to harder decisions later on. So if there's something that you procrastinate on, that you have resistance into, try to get that done as early as you can throughout the day. I think by combining all these principles together and trying to create a harmony amongst them, you may find that you can improve your work-life balance. And see, it wasn't that complicated. These are things that you can apply readily. You don't have to go and buy anything. These are just simple principles that you can apply right now. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, then don't be afraid to leave it a like, as well as subscribe to the channel for all future content around life and health style optimization. And until next time, make sure that you are prioritizing and then you are optimizing. Take care until then. Peace.